republic for which it stands.
One nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Guns, self-defense, concealed carry. This is the Patriot Defense Podcast. From the war room in Idaho's high desert, here's your host, Todd Echols.
And I am back once again. It's a Monday morning, and if you paid attention to your podcast player on your phone, you will see that I actually released a podcast. I uploaded a podcast yesterday. So we did one on Sunday, me and Eli, and we got that out there as well. And, as we come into the holidays, I get a little more time on my hand. It gets cold. People are focused on Christmas and all that stuff. And I tend to get some free time on my hands, let's say, And so I figured I might as well jump on here when I can. I know there's lots of, news stories out there and whatnot. I might as well jump on here a little more often. I don't know how long this is going to last for all those who are like, oh man, more podcasts. Some of you may be saying, no, more podcasts from Todd. But I thought I'd jump on there. I've been watching this news story for a little while, as we all have. And so I thought I'd jump on and give you guys a little extra, just a little extra content this week and kind of some clips. I've got some clips. And if you've been living under a rock, which you may have, and it is what it is, sometimes I do as well. I want to talk today about Measure 114 out of Oregon. I want to talk to you about that whole big mess over there. 114 was that gun law that they actually passed, unfortunately. It passed in the state of Oregon, and they've actually, there's a lawsuit out against it right now. We're waiting to hear back, but as of the December 8th, I think it will go into effect if there is not an injunction put out for this Measure 114. And what it says is it's going to have this like ban, there is a magazine, it's a magazine ban. There's magazine limitations that are involved in this. You have to get, you have to get verified and background checked to go purchase this firearm. There's all kinds of stuff involved in this. And it's pretty fascinating to me that it's not fascinating, but it appalls me that this passed. There is so many good people that live in Oregon, and I feel for them right now, right? I really do. I honestly. And you may say, well, you feel for those people in Oregon, Todd, but they let this happen. And you know what? They did, but they didn't. And I got like 4 different clips here that I want to play today that talks about this. And in one of these clips, you will hear that it doesn't take very much. It takes a lot of people in one area, like in one county, 1 or 2 counties, that could actually push this through. And where you think of Oregon and you probably think of the crazies that live down in Portland. But what you don't get is there's a whole bunch of people that live in these ranchers, and they live out in the mountains, and they live out in the other counties in the other parts of Oregon that aren't as populated as like Portland. Well, Oregon has turned into what Washington State has. Washington State is pretty much ruled by King County, and that is Seattle. And I don't know exactly which county it is in Oregon, but Oregon is ruled by the Portland metro area. That's what rules that state right now. That is what has, it's their politics, but there's such a mass of people there that if you don't stand up, if you don't pay attention, that's what happens to your state. And, even here in Idaho, I think I've been saying it for a long time now, for years now. We have to watch out because Boise, Ada County is going to end up controlling the whole state. But I got my clips here, and I tried to organize them, but, they might be a little, kind of a little messed up here. But we're going to start with this one clip right here, and then I will comment and voice my concern, opinion about these as we go. So let me find that clip, and it is right here.
Sportsman stores and firearms dealers who are concerned about the effects, they're erring on the side of caution. So we have a Sportsman's Warehouse chain in the state here, and they have let everybody know that December 8th is when they're going to stop selling firearms. We're looking at the end of firearm sales in Oregon until this system is put into place. And that also means that Oregonians cannot go out of state to purchase firearms either. We're basically being held hostage by 114 because firearms dealers have to respect the laws of a person's home state. They cannot sell to you if it's going to be illegal in your state. We see the impacts of 114 on the hunting community in that we feel very strongly it's going to impact what we refer to as the R3 efforts. Recruitment, retention, and reactivation is what the R3 stands for. If Oregonians who are interested in hunting can't purchase an appropriate firearm to do that with, that's going to have a severe effect on our ability to bring new hunters into the community and see success rates that would keep folks engaged as hunters. The other aspect is for our bird hunters, our waterfowlers and our upland bird hunters who use shotguns. We have several shotgun models that have barrel lengths that are 21 inches or longer. And because of the new home defense rounds, which are shells that are about half the size of a normal shell, you can fit 10 or more of those into the internal tube in these shotguns, which makes them illegal because there's no stipulation on caliber or size of shell that you have to use. If it can fit 10 or more, it's going to be illegal. So that's going to make a big impact on our shotgunners and whether or not they can utilize the firearms that they have or potentially purchase a firearm that would be appropriate for bird hunting. What it seeks to do is establish a permit to purchase system. That in itself is inherently cumbersome. They also want to add a live fire component to courses. And again, that's not something that is exceptionally commonplace for firearm safety just because of the logistics of getting a range and getting range time and things like that so that you can safely hold a live fire training. And it also presents a little bit of an odd chicken and the egg situation. So they're asking you to show proficiency with your firearm by being able to fire it. However, if you don't have a firearm and you are trying to get a permit to purchase a firearm, you've got this weird, cycle of I don't have a firearm and so therefore I can't show proficiency and I can't get a permit to purchase a firearm. There's a very real disconnect between the proponents and their understanding of firearms, firearm safety, and firearms ownership. We are a little bit encouraged by the fact that it passed by such a very narrow margin. It was not the landslide that I think the proponents were anticipating. Only 6 counties of our 36 counties carried this. And really the 2 counties that make up Portland and the center of Portland are the reason why it passed. In the mornings when I check the news, a lot of my news comes out of Portland. I'm not Portland centric. I don't live near there, but a lot of the news is generated out of Portland. And a lot of that news is about firearms violence. The gun violence term that they like to use, a lot of that is revolving around the violence in our metro areas. I think that the most charitable spin I can put on this is that they really thought they needed to do something to solve that. The unfortunate thing is that this is not going to turn into something that's going to have a very valid effect on criminal aspect of violence, which is really what is going on. It regardless of whether it's utilizing a firearm or not, it's a criminal violent act that's happening. Regulating legal firearm owners is not going to have the effect that they are desiring on that.
It's very interesting. It's and she just pretty much reinstated what I just said. It's not all of Oregon. It is the 2 counties that make up the center of the Portland metro area, and they're the ones that want this. They're the ones that passed this. They're the ones that voted for this. And it's very interesting because They cite as they want to be safe. They want to curb gun violence. Well, if you look at Portland over the last couple of years, and even look at like the Seattle area, it happened there as well. But we're talking about Oregon, so let's look at Portland. Look at the liberal cesspool Portland has turned into. In fact, I just had this long conversation last night with a friend about Oregon. I absolutely love Oregon. I was actually born in Oregon. I lived there as Eastern Oregon. It wasn't Portland. I remember as a kid, I used to go to Portland to catch the Portland Trailblazers basketball game. I thought it was a beautiful city. I loved it down there. The food is phenomenal. Great city, right? I would love to live in Oregon. I would love to move back to Oregon. The state is beautiful, the green, the natural resources, the coast, but their politics have killed that state. Portland, that voting area, that big voting block of people that essentially control the state now, they have turned it into such a cesspool of homelessness and rampant drug use and everything. And I'm all about people, I'm a libertarian at heart, right? And I'm all about people, do you and I'll do me. But man, the lawlessness and the having the police like step down and telling the police to step down and allowing these riots and allowing this scourge upon that beautiful state, they have created the violence that they are now trying to curb with this one measure 114. That is what is absolutely insane about this. And it's the same way in Washington state, and it's going to be the same way here in Idaho where I live. And they have, she listed what some of the things were that this measure would require, right? And as an instructor, and I'm not even looking at just I'm not even looking at it from a monetary business angle. I'm looking at it as a responsibility, safety. I do kind of agree with, if you want to get a gun, you should show proficiency with it. But if you want to get that permit, just be safe. Let's do this. Idaho, I think, has a pretty darn good model right now. You actually have permitless carry. You have constitutional carry where you can get a gun and stuff. But if you want to go the extra mile and you want to get that permit, which I think everyone should, they can demonstrate that responsibility and they can go and they can take a safety class and learn the laws. I think that's great, right? But when you have a state that comes in and absolutely is going to require that for gun ownership, and then like she said, it's the chicken and the egg. It's the catch-22. It's the you've never had a firearm before, but you want to buy one, but now you have to demonstrate. That you can be efficient and safe and with a firearm, but you can't even buy one to show that unless you have. What are you going to do, right? They've built that in on purpose. And as I play more of these clips and as we go along, you're going to see that they are trying to implement this whole measure. They've passed it. It is going up in front of some courts right now, and I got some news coming up that we'll talk about in a second. But they are trying to implement this, but they don't have the funds. They don't have the infrastructure. They have nothing in place to support this, to make this a go. And so what they're doing is they're saying that, if this doesn't get an injunction if we don't get an injunction to stop this, and this goes forward as of December 8th, what's going to happen? Oh, well, even the gun stores are coming out and they're saying, and she said in that clip, we're not selling guns. As of December 8th, we are not selling firearms. And they can't because the requirements in place to be able to sell those firearms, they aren't in place. Just think of it. This is just a half-baked liberal scheme. And they do this on purpose, right? They want them shut down. They didn't care about whether or not they had this stuff in place because it works out better for them. If they can fire this up on December 8th and the stuff's not in place, they don't really care about that because if there's nothing in place, they can't sell firearms. And ultimately, that's what they want. And it's just amazing. You got guns until the 8th. You have got firearms just flying off the shelves over there, I was reading a whole bunch of articles on it earlier today. In fact, I know there's some companies, I think it's Palmetto State Armory, so PSA, they sell 30-round magazines. They have a deal that pops up on their website right now, as soon as it's passed. That, hey, if you don't live in Oregon and you're trying to buy a 30-round mag from us, you're going to have to just wait because we are taking all our resources and we're taking all our 30-round mags. And if anyone in Oregon wants them or the gun stores want to buy them so they can get them in the hands, we are sending everything we have to Oregon right now. Let's flood the state of Oregon with these 30-round mags. People are they're just going crazy at the gun stores right now. So here you go.
Good evening and welcome to the 5 o'clock news. I'm Stephanie Domerat.
And I'm Pete Ferryman. First at 5 tonight, 3 weeks from today, Measure 114 is scheduled to go into effect, but there are many unanswered questions surrounding the details of this new law. But we do know one thing for sure: the many unknowns are leading to a spike in gun sales across Oregon.
Fox 12's Connor McCarthy is live for us in Clackamas tonight to tell us how some gun owners are feeling.
Well, Pete and Stephanie, I spoke to multiple gun stores in the metro area, and they say business has exploded. People are coming in looking to buy guns, ammo, and magazine clips. But the owners of those gun stores that I spoke with say that they feel like they're in limbo with no direction on how to abide by this new law that goes into effect next month.
Pretty much just the order we got them in here.
This was the site inside a Milwaukee gun store right after doors opened Thursday afternoon. Customers shoulder to shoulder looking to buy what they can before Measure 114 officially becomes law.
Everybody's trying to get in. Nobody really understands the law fully.
Oregon State Police say since the election, applications for background checks jumped 400%. Allen is one of those shoppers looking to buy a gun after Measure 114 passed by just a few thousand votes.
The law is poorly written, and they don't have ways to enforce, things like legacy, magazines, and so I just think that it's going to be a mess.
Measure 114 expands background checks, requires gun owners to take a training course for a permit before they can even buy a gun. The law also bans the sale or transfer of magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. And someone has to register all gun owners in a database run by the Oregon State Police. Local law enforcement agencies like the Marion and Lincoln County Sheriff's offices say they're working to understand what role they play in implementing the new law.
It's restricting normal citizens from owning normal things. It has nothing to do with blocking crime. Criminals aren't going to stop and see how many bullets they have in their magazines.
With the clock ticking until Measure 114 becomes law, Oregon's gun owners remain anxious about what's next.
The people that I see here are good people. They follow the law, and those that are typically involved in incidents, they're not going to follow the law, and it doesn't matter how many laws there are.
Well, Pete and Stephanie, Clackamas County is the only county in the metro area to vote no on Measure 114. To give you an idea about how close it was, 1,100 votes separate the two sides. And so far, the Union County and Lynn County sheriffs say that they're not going to enforce Measure 114, and they expect the law to be challenged in court. Live in Clackamas.
So that was kind of an old clip. That was from I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it is being challenged in court. And so we're going to see what happens. And there is some states, or excuse me, there is some sheriffs that have come out and said, we're not enforcing this. We don't agree with it. We're not doing it. We're not enforcing it. And that's fantastic that these sheriffs are coming out and saying this. And, let's see how far it gets them. I'm always the one that's, good if a sheriff wants to say that, fantastic. But let's see them not enforce it. You can talk a big talk, but it's when where the rubber meets the road. That's when we see, how true you're going to be to what you're saying. And of course, they had to take this, and they've talked about these sheriffs that say they're not going to stand up for it, and then the attorney general for the state of Oregon has to get involved, and this is what they had to say.
To a Lewis and Clark law professor who says the legality of public officials not enforcing a law is kind of a gray area until the courts weigh in.
If the courts say, no, this is okay, this is good, then I think at that point, it's been settled, and no government official can still maintain the view, well, I still think it's unconstitutional.
So this thing certainly feels like it's rushing headlong toward a lawsuit. We did get a note from the Oregon Attorney General's office saying that the AG does expect local law enforcement to comply with the law, including enforcing it. So time will tell, but people on both sides of the 114 debate will be watching any potential lawsuits closely, and so will we, of course.
Well, and it'll be kind of interesting, I think, to see what happens. If this does go through, right? If this does go through, if they don't get this injunction that everyone is hoping that they're going to get, because to block this unconstitutional measure, these unconstitutional laws, to stomp on the Oregonians' Second Amendment rights, and it'd be interesting to see if the sheriff, if they back up what they just said, and if they stand up to the Attorney General. I don't know, man. I feel bad for the people of Oregon because there's a lot of good people that live there, and once again, your state has fallen. Your state has fallen, like many others have, to where they're getting ruled by one or two counties in like the biggest metro area of that state, unfortunately. And they're crooked. It's just a liberal cesspool. And I did find this too. So we're waiting on this injunction to find out what happens. I did find this, that there is a possible postponement. So this is a little bit of a good news to a certain extent. A little bit of a possible postponement and of some of the rules or some of the new laws that would be implemented by Measure 114. Let's take a listen.
Stories in just a moment, but right now we have some breaking news. Just moments ago, the Oregon State Department of Justice issued a news release stating that they are requesting a postponement of some of the key elements of Measure 114, the gun control measure passed in the November elections. The statement says local law enforcement notified the DOJ stating that they would not be able to administer the permitting portion of the measure. Oregon Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum says, quote, postponing the permit requirement by approximately 2 months should give Oregon law enforcement time to have a fully functional permitting system in place. If the judge agrees to the postponement, then starting in February, anyone who purchases a gun in Oregon will be required to have a permit. The Oregon State Sheriff's Association and the Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police had submitted sworn statements to the court stating that on December 8th, no one in the state will be able to complete the in-person firearm safety training required by Measure 114. The DOJ, meantime, says that other elements of the measure, including the limit on ammunition magazines, will go into effect on December 8th. We'll have more on this major announcement.
Sorry, I forgot to push my button. It's like I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I pushed my button there. So there you go. I mean, it's not ready. There's nothing in place. There's nothing ready. They are scrambling right now to get all this infrastructure in place, this permitting system in place that they had not prepared. And they don't really care if it's prepared or not because they just don't. They just don't want people to sell guns. That's all there is to it. And, I keep talking about the good people of Oregon, and there is a lot of good people of Oregon. Now, there's been a movement that, it's come up every year for the past 5 or 6 years. And every year there's an article on it. I found the most recent article I could find. And there's this movement, and it involves Washington State as well, I think. But we're going to focus on Oregon right now, where there is a whole bunch of counties that want to kind of secede and become part of Oregon. And I've got a list right here. So it looks like these are going to be counties that have actually passed ballot measures supporting becoming a part of Idaho. And that's Sherman County, Jefferson County, Grant County, Union County, Baker County, Malheur County, Harney County, Lake County, and Klamath County. So those counties in Oregon have passed a ballot measure that said they want to support becoming a part of Idaho. Then you have Morrow County and Wheeler County, which they actually just voted not too long ago. And I'm trying to how old is this article? Before I probably screwed that all up. But anyhow, it looks like they were on the path to becoming those counties that want to join Idaho as well. So, I don't know that they'd ever do anything as drastic as redrawing state borders, but part of me is like, you know what, do it. We could use more right-thinking people over here as well to help us out, because I think Idaho is going down the same path as Oregon and the same path as Washington. They want to change these states. They want to change these states, and I think they're kind of getting pretty close to achieving it. So this Oregon thing, just kind of a little update on it. It's fascinating to kind of watch and see what happens. I think everyone's kind of watching it as well. Hopefully, this gave you a little bit of more insight on it. Maybe give you something to think about a little bit. Again, I love Oregon. I would move to Oregon in a heartbeat, but I just don't agree with their politics right now. And especially the politics with the firearms. I'm not in. I'm not there. I mean, there's just no way. I'll go visit. I'll go to take my family on vacation to the coast. I'll go run some races over there. And as I drive through those beautiful forests, as I drive through the mountains and part of the redwoods, and yeah, I would love to move there. I would love to live there again. I mean, I grew up in Eastern Oregon, and I would love to even just to move back to there. But even the good people on those counties on the eastern side of the state are just being affected by this. And it's kind of a scary world we live in. So pay attention. Pay attention to wherever you live. Pay attention to the state that you live in. And know that this could be coming to you if you don't take control, if you don't take charge, if you don't show up to the voting polls, right? You've got to show up to the voting booth. You've got to vote. You've got to pay attention to who you put into office. That's pretty much, you have to pay attention. You can't get lax, right? You can't have this Idaho. I'm speaking to you, Idaho. You can't have this good old boy mentality. It won't ever happen here because damn it, it will. It will. And these other states prove this. They prove that it will happen and it can happen. All you have to do is be asleep at the wheel. That's all you have to do. But I hope you enjoyed this little bit. And, if I find some more news stories and I want to fire up the microphone, fire up the old Rodecaster Pro and do a little podcast, I might do that. So I guess, enjoy while you can get the extra podcast a week, because we'll see how long this lasts. Thanks. Bye.